Greetings and welcome to another episode of Hearthstone Hypotheticals. My name is HELLSCREAM and today we're going to be diving in what are the best design cards according to people on my Twitter. Essentially the point of this show, or the point of this YouTube series, is that I ask a question almost every single day on my Hearthstone Twitter and I get a lot of responses. So every single day I'm going to ask some sort of question and see what you guys think. So let's go ahead and see what some of these replies are on some of the best design cards in Hearthstone's history according to my Twitter. The first reply is coming from Rocket Panda, and he is saying that Ancharrr, Ringmastered, Witchwood Piper, and any other minion that draws me a specific card. So pretty much he's talking about card tutors, cards that, in this case, draw a pirate, draw the lowest cost minion. They draw some sort of specific card in order to help you achieve your game plan. And Ancharrr was definitely, one of the best cards, one of the best examples of this, actually, because of its effectiveness not only in Pirate Warrior, but in Enrage Warrior, and really any deck that wanted to play Risky Skipper. Like, Ancharrr was just the combo card that you would put in your deck if you wanted to put Risky Skipper combos and weird Enrage Warrior capabilities. But other than that, Ancharrr really didn't have any other sort of use, except when it was a 2-3 and you can kind of upgrade the weapon every now and again. So if you really had a deck that was full of pirates, this card was amazing. But after the nerf, the 2 durability really did make a difference, because there's just less pirates that you can run, more likely that you'll draw them from your deck. But overall, I think this is a very well-designed card because this is one of those cards that is... I said this a lot in my previous video, but when Hearthstone cards are made, they seem like puzzle pieces, while this card is a puzzle piece that doesn't completely break the game. I would say that Risky Skipper decks were actually very healthy for the meta. It was a very skill-intensive deck and had lots of ways of being played out depending on what kind of game plan you were enacting. But Ancharrr is definitely a card I would love to see more of because it enabled such great archetypes before in the past, and specific card draw is always going to be useful as long as it's not too powerful. I would say really the only card that kind of breaks the rule on this is maybe Talon Forging, and that's kind of pushing it a little bit. I really can't think of any other specific card tutor cards that are so broken that would have to be fixed, but I would really like this mechanic to continue being a thing because all it does is really help and really enforce archetypes for being a thing. Elias is saying that Defile is a perfect card for me, it's just perfect. And honestly, I have to agree with him because we haven't really seen a board clear very similar to Defile to where it's extremely skill intensive. It being 2 mana is honestly a better thing because there's lots of different ways of being able to use it. You can just kill a board full of 1/1s, or you can go for the massive board clears that Defile is known for. And the better part about this card is that it just feels so good from a design standpoint. Like, I really can't imagine another card to be able to put on a pedestal in order to say, this is what Hearthstone does, and this is why the game is really, really enjoyable. Because there are cards like this that allow players to play a whole bunch of different kinds of decks and have Warlock still be, a driving force behind the meta because Defile is that powerful of a card and is such a unique ability that we really haven't been able to see something like this outside of Lord Godfrey, which, if you think about it, is just Defile on steroids. But regardless, I love Defile. I don't think anybody can really complain about this card unless they've lost to it a few amount of times. And honestly, that's not a reason to hate a card. You gotta hate a card because it completely warps the meta. Defile, I think, is a perfectly balanced card because you technically gotta play into it, or on the flip side, you as the person playing it have to do the best that you can in order to set up Defile to deal as much damage as physically possible. So I would definitely challenge Blizzard to come up with more cards like Defile that are not necessarily game-breaking, but are extremely powerful. Sparrowhawk is saying that Sylvannas for longevity is good for the design of the game. Relevant for so many years and in so many metas, but never OP, the most solid card in Hearthstone's history. I also think this card's pretty well designed in terms of the flavor of Sylvannas Windrunner. I'm starting to get a little bit more caught up on my World of Warcraft lore. And for those of you who don't know, Sylvannas Windrunner literally mind controls people. Like, she brainwashes them for a little bit. So the Death Rattle take control of a random minion is very reminiscent of that effect in the World of Warcraft universe. But aside from that, Sylvannas ended up being rotated to the Hall of Fame because of how impactful she was. It was essentially it was a 6-mana mind control if your opponent literally didn't have another minion on the field, and then when more cards were printed like Play Dead for Hunter that would literally trigger Death Rattles, Sylvannas became a card that was very worrisome for the Hearthstone design team at the time. Do I think that Sylvannas would see a ton of play in this current meta? Probably not, but I think if Sylvannas was still in the mix, there would be some deck that she would be really insane in. Maybe in like a priest deck or something, like a deck that just aims to kill their own Sylvannas and do something with it. But I really think that the design of this card is actually really, really healthy when you don't just abuse Sylvannas and use it as like just stealing one minion every single time. But really, really awesome design card. Very, very flavorful. I don't know if I would be comfortable with Sylvannas being in today's meta, but I would definitely be intrigued to see some sort of event similar to Doom in the Tomb to see if she would actually be meta warping or not. Because I'm apprehensive, but I'm not 100% sure. So feel free to let me know what you guys think in the comments about Sylvannas Windrunner in specific, because this is one of these cards on these lists where I would like to see it again, but I don't know, man. Seems a little dicey to me. The next comment that we have is coming from Luke. Luke is saying Lightning Bloom, and apparently he forgot to include Y in the original post, but he's saying it's Druid's most balanced mana cheat ever. You technically gain nothing, but let you arrange turns in ways for you to power spike while making you and your opponent able to react to it. Yes, it's strong, but it's not broken, and it makes it #1 for me. I kind of agree and kind of disagree with this take. I like the idea of him saying that it's kind of balanced. I don't 100% agree with that, but I can understand where he's coming from because of the overload that happens to come with the Lightning Bloom trigger. Like, as soon as you play it, you get 2 mana now, and then you don't get 2 mana later. The only issue is with Druid, mana cheat is really easy to come by, and there's a lot of situations to where Lightning Bloom can just, like, literally if you Lightning Bloom, innervate into Guardian Animals on turn 3, it's not going to be a pleasant gaming experience. And yeah, you have a really bad next turn, but the turn that you've set up is so good to where that next turn doesn't really matter. Some people that would say that's good design, some other people would say that's bad design. I think it's somewhere in the middle. As long as Druid's not breaking the meta with this like Guardian Druid used to do, then I'm absolutely fine with it. Nowadays, Druid's a lot more tame because the only good Druid deck is Token Druid and to an extent Survival Druid with Clowns and the Primordial Protector. But still, there's not really a lot of ways that Druid can really use Lightning Bloom outside of like just set up a board and then don't care about the next turn, because the turn that you're setting up is a lot more important than having some kind of turn to fall back on, because you've done the thing that your deck needs to do. Now it's just whether or not your opponent can actually beat it or not. But the power spike turns are definitely something that the deck needs. I don't know how much I like it in particular, because I'm not really a fan of Token Druid in just as an archetype. I've never been a fan of it, even when it was first released as an aggro deck. Then it became a mid-range deck, and now it's kind of somewhere in between aggro and mid-range. But I can understand where Luke is coming from, so I'm going to go ahead and give him this point here. I think Lightning Bloom does have a lot of interesting ways of being played, so that does kind of increase its design numbers, in my opinion. But there's a lot of ways that Lightning Bloom can become problematic, and that is the reason why I'm a little bit apprehensive to just immediately say it's a really well-designed card. But in all, Lightning Bloom is a good card. You definitely can't refute that. This next card is going to be controversial, guys. I didn't want to do this, but Paradox is trying to fight me, guys. I don't know what to tell him. Mindrender Illucia is a good card. This is going to be controversial, so let's go ahead and give my take on why I agree but strongly disagree with Paradox's statement. So let's get the hard part out of the way. Why is Mindrender Illucia a well-designed card? Well, because we really haven't seen anything along the lines of this kind of power level outside of what Michael is saying here with Azalina. Azalina is greater than Illucia every day. Every day for this question. Illucia is just a juiced class version of the OG, which I would somewhat agree with. But the difference between Illucia and Azalina is the fact that Illucia also steals the deck, and you can keep playing your cards from your opponent's deck until the end of the turn. So the main reason why this card was made was so combo decks would have some sort of weakness against Priest, because Priest was just it got destroyed by every single combo deck, and you know that I love destroying Priest with my combos. But after a few metas of, I think, either Priest mains complaining or Blizzard realizing that Priest needs a way to interact with combos somehow, they came up with this card. And this is where I'm going to start saying that Mindrender Illucia is not a well-designed card, because even though it does what it's supposed to, it probably does what it was designed to do, it is so frustrating. It is so annoying. It is absolutely mind-boggling, mind-rendering. It is mind-rendering that this card goes up against me so frequently, and almost every single time it comes down, it doesn't even feel like I'm playing Hearthstone anymore. I'm pretty sure that this is the driving force behind the Delete Priest movement, because even though all the other Priest cards are somewhat infuriating to go against, Mindrender Illucia tilts people to such a massive height to where it will not matter if this card does what it's supposed to or not, because the way that people actually use it is completely different than what it was designed to do. It was designed to stop combos. Well, sometimes combo can be loosely translated to opponent's cards that I combo out of their hand. So with that in mind, Mindrender Illucia, well designed in terms of what it's supposed to do for the Priest class, but for literally all other 9 classes, and for all the other people that aren't playing Priest, that are going up against Priest, don't want to, then see this card, all it is a driving force in order to make them either quit the game or hate Priest, or make a movement on Twitter about getting rid of a card or a class. So, Mindrender Illucia is probably one of the most controversial Hearthstone cards that has ever been printed. Even with the Stealer Souls going to Wild, you can fight me on that one. But this card is it's just so tilting. Like I said earlier, it doesn't feel like Hearthstone. It feels like a completely different game, and everything is just thrown out the window in terms of like Hearthstone fundamentals and how you're supposed to play the game. So, overall, Mindrender Illucia is a cool card. I will give it that. It is a pretty cool card because I've played it a few times and I understand how powerful it is, but I never feel good playing it. I never feel good going up against it, and all it's doing is just creating more negative experiences with Priest particularly. So Mindrender Illucia, sorry, I don't agree with you, Paradox. I know you're trying to fight me on this one, but I do not agree with you. And hopefully you guys can understand why I don't agree with them, because this card is just too frustrating. I'm probably going to mess up the pronunciation on this next name, but Gilio Troll is saying Shudderwock because my jaws that bite, my claws that catch. But really, it's an original and interesting, and I enjoyed playing it all the time he was in Standard because I don't play Wild. Well, Gilio, if you're watching this right now, I would give Wild a chance because Shudderwock is just how you remember it, except with literally insert a meme, insert a battle cry, and that is the win condition of your deck. So, Shudderwock is something we covered on the last episode about the worst design cards in Hearthstone. So it's kind of funny to see the flip side of some people think that this is well designed and this is badly designed. I think I kind of gave my opinion on Shudderwock and how it limits design space and how the team really wasn't, at the time, ready to print a card like this. They thought like it might be a little bit too powerful, and as it turns out, this card was pretty game-breaking, not only in terms of its effect, but also because of its battle cry literally taking 15 minutes. We all know the classic Disguised Toast clip of him playing as many Shudderwocks as possible and the animations going off for 15 minutes. But aside from that, like, Shudderwock now kind of feels a lot better designed because it's in Wild and it's not plaguing Standard in any sort of way. But the reason why Shudderwock is even so good is because of cards like Grumble. If Grumble didn't exist, then Shudderwock wouldn't exist. So the Shudderwock combo that everybody is mad about the infinite Shudderwocks bouncing over and over and over again, you're really mad at Grumble in that instance because he's returning all of the cards to your hand for 1 mana. If it was literally without Grumble and you had to rely on cards like Zola or Youthful Brew or something like that, you could only play 1 Shudderwock a turn. So getting rid of the infinite Shudderwock possibilities, this card is actually pretty cool, pretty awesomely designed in my opinion, because it literally, like, Shaman needs archetypes, and I can't think of a better archetype than literally every single battle cry in your deck feeds into your boss monster, which for some people they may not agree with it being well designed, but I like the idea of being able to enable archetypes in some way or another, and Battlecry Shaman was not really something that was available at the time, and then suddenly they made Battlecry such an important keyword for the class, and I would kind of like to see something not similar to Shudderwock, but similar to what Shudderwock did, in terms of this card was printed, and now everybody is going to think about, ooh, Battlecry Shaman, that could be a thing. Don't do it with freeze mechanics. I don't think we need another Murabi, but I would like to see Shaman have some kind of, like, mid-range control deck, similar to what Shudderwock Shaman used to be, just not as, well, toxic, for lack of a better word. I'm sorry, but for some people, my claws that bite, my claws that catch is just a phrase they don't want to hear anymore, and I can totally understand that. Gangplaying is saying that he likes to go with Defile. We already talked about Defile. Just another vote for that card. So that's probably going to be the thumbnail of this video because it's such a great card. But Raven Sun is saying, well, Zephrys, of course. If we forgive him for his game-losing whiffs. It's pretty funny comment. Both Kazakuses, too bad that they don't fit in the same list very well. Sir Finley of the Sands, also pretty cool. They had 4 options instead of 3. The Swiss Army Knife cards are always a good variance to gameplay. So cards like Finley, cards like Zephrys, cards that literally can give you different tools in different situations. And I would say that Zephrys is actually a excellent designed card. If you don't like Highlander decks, you're not going to agree with me. But there might be another reason you don't agree with me, because of Zephrys being one of those cards to where it's like, well, it doesn't matter because now I have to play around Zephrys. And, well, Zephrys is supposed to be those one-of cards to where it really helps with some hole the deck has. And that's the reason why I like it so much, is because a lot of these Reno decks at the time, before Zephrys was printed, had issues of either healing, dealing AoE, getting that last bit of damage at the end of the game because they're just so close to finishing it. It was very common with like Reno Mage at the time. But with Zephrys, you literally could tutor your game plan in a lot of different directions depending on how you wanted to use the Zephrys. It was like your wild card, for lack of a better term. Wild card in Standard Kick W. In any case, Zephrys is just one of those cards to where I think he actually has a lot of positivity for the game when you take out, the fact that you lose to him a lot. But there's a lot of people that would also disagree with the fact that Zephrys is too flexible, because he literally can get you almost any card from any class, and suddenly it just comes down to the fact of, is the Highlander deck better than the more consistent 2 copies of deck? Going on to the Kazakuses, I think that the Kazakuses are very, very well designed, and I think we will see another one here later on the list, so I won't go too big into detail about the Kazakuses. But for the original Kazakus, very, very customizable. For the new Kazakus, it's a little bit more limited because it's about minions versus just like dealing stuff from your hand. But both fill gaps in decks that I feel like are very, very much needed. Sir Finley of the Sands is a card that I wish I got that got a little bit more play. But unfortunately, this is just one of those cards to where if you don't play it on 2, it kind of doesn't make much of a difference. So sadly for the Reno cards, Finley of the Sands is just not up to par to the other cards. And if you think about it, okay, so Mage gets to kill board, which is what they need. Hunter gets to deal damage, which is what they want to do with King Crushes regardless. Druid can do literally anything with Elise. If you guys have seen my combo videos, you know what I've done with Elise the Enlightened. And then you have Sir Finley of the Sands, who's just like, yay, hero powers. It just kind of seems like a weird turn in left field. But regardless, Sir Finley is a card that I wish could see a little bit more play, but it's just not going to happen. So let's see what these other what some other responses are for Zephrys and for Kazakus. Anthony is saying Zilliax. Yeah, Zilliax is a perfect card. He's unity, he is precision, he is perfection. But aside from the meme, Zilliax is one of those cards that literally just builds on top of your other cards, which is something that a deck needs in order to function properly. And the best thing about Zilliax is that I'm just gonna say this example where you're not magnetizing him, to where if your opponent just has a 3/3 on the field and you play Zilliax and you kill it, not only are you killing that minion and healing yourself for 3, essentially making a difference of 6, you're also putting on another minion that your opponent has to deal with, and it literally was one of those cards to where it brought you back as a control deck. Turn 5 or turn 4 was a very important breaking point for either control decks or aggro decks, and whether or not they were going to steamroll the deck, they were going to steamroll the game or not. And Zilliax was just a great barrier or obstacle that a lot of decks had to overcome in order to actually win the game. And then you look at Zilliax's appliances with literally every other mech in the game. So like first thing that comes to mind is actually Death Rattle Rogue with the whelps, the mechanic whelps, to where it summons 7/7 mechs out of the 6-mana 2/2 dragon whelp. And then if you stick a Zilliax on that, not only can that dragon immediately attack, or I'm sorry, the mech can immediately attack, it also heals you for 10. So there's a lot of ways that Zilliax was just used in that way to just completely like bring you back from the edge of death, but I never really heard that many complaints about Zilliax, surprisingly. Even though it was such like a meta-defining card, but people seem to enjoy what this card brought to the table. And I think for that reason alone, like, you're telling me there was a well-designed Hearthstone card that won games that people did not complain about? Oh my god, Blizzard, you need to make more cards like this. Ricardo is going to get us back on the Kazakus train. I really love the card design. It's unique, it's balanced, and a lot of fun. I really think that Kazakus was exactly what the no duplicate decks in Hearthstone really needed in order to start its campaign in Hearthstone, for lack of a better term. But Kazakus was just one of those cards that literally made you want to play these kind of decks. Because first off, if you don't know this card, it just gives you a okay, so it creates a random spell. The first option you get is a 1 mana, a 5 mana, or a 10 mana spell. And then he gives you 2 more options to essentially upgrade your potion to do a certain effect. So these effects can clear the board, they can upgrade the health of your minions, it can summon a minion, usually I think a golem, it was like a 1/1, a 5/5, or a 10/10, depending on which... and all these abilities scale up depending on which potion you choose for the mana cost. But yeah, there was a lot of different things that Kazakus could do. He could clear the board, give you armor. There was a lot of different combinations, drawing cards. Like, I think that's all the abilities. I might have missed one. But Kazakus was just one of those cards to where it was cool to play this. And on turn 4, it really did make a difference because a lot of the times you played this for either one of 2 spells. You played it for the 1 mana spell for like getting rid of a minion or dealing some kind of AoE, or you played the 5 mana one for whatever situation that you needed, which could have been gain armor, deal damage, draw options. Like, there were just so many ways of being able to play this card, and a lot of ways that you kind of had to find a way to use the potion if you didn't get that good of an option. There were freeze effects, I just now remembered that. But yeah, Kazakus is just, I would love to see more cards like Kazakus, and we have with the new version of him that just summons a minion instead of giving you a spell. But I really think that if we had more cards like this that create custom cards or create something very, very specific to where we might need to use it in a particular way, I would absolutely love to see more cards like that. Because all it does is just give deck builders more utility. I want utility and versatility in my card game, especially in Hearthstone, because of all the things that we can do with like Discover and just generating stuff that is literally not a part of our deck. So Kazakus is a 5 out of 5. I know I haven't been ranking these cards, but design-wise, Kazakus just really rings true and really rings to what people in Hearthstone really do enjoy. It's not necessarily that the randomness is winning the game, but sometimes this randomness is very, very healthy, even though some people may not enjoy it. But I really do enjoy cards like Kazakus because of what it can bring to the table. And like I said, versatility is what I look for in a Hearthstone deck. Bionic Door is also saying that there was only one card that brought unity to the community, precision to every situation, and one card that was truly perfection. Obviously, it was Zilliax. Such a great card. And we have Charlie coming in with yet another vote for Zephrys. We talked a lot about Zephrys, but there's one thing that I did forget to mention about the card. And one thing that I feel like a lot of people oversee with Zephrys is that this card received so much change, like so many changes. Like, this card was literally whenever it was a problem, whenever it didn't give you what you needed, Blizzard tried to fix it until it reached a point to where Zephrys went to Wild, and now I don't know if they're going to fix it. So in terms of just how much effort was put into this, you at least have to give them the point in terms of well-designed, because they literally tried to make this card as balanced and as cool as they physically could. I think that Zephrys is a card that we definitely cannot see anymore in Hearthstone in terms of just like how tilting this card kind of made some people. And I will admit, there were some times where I saw this card and I'm like, wow, screw this card, I don't want to see it ever again. But there's just so many different moments to where you just literally play this and you have so many positive memories. One of my favorite things to do with Zephrys actually was in Reno decks. I would play him on 2 and Wild Growth as Mage, specifically Mage, because then I could coin into Dragoncaster and play a box as early as turn 4. So when that was enabled, I thought Zephrys was hilarious. Other people may not have agreed with that because Puzzle Box is kind of woof. But regardless, I think that Zephrys has a lot to offer Hearthstone. And in Wild, unfortunately, he's kind of overshadowed by how good the Reno decks are, and that's not going to go away. But I would love to see another card like Zephrys in terms of its utility, not necessarily in terms of how specific of a card it gives you. But as I said in the last card, I really like versatility in my Hearthstone decks. So let's see some more versatility. Roman is talking about the OG Lord Jaraxxus. It was a first hero card. It's a minion, so it could be disrupted from your hand with cards like Dirty Rat. Destroys your hero and replaces it with a Demon Lord, so it's very warlocky, very flavorful. Equips a strong weapon and gives OP HP. But HP is not really that OP. Oblivion, definitely nice. And all this power comes at a price of max health to 15 and armor to 0. Well, you could always get armor as Jaraxxus with other cards, but regardless, Jaraxxus as a whole, how he used to be back in the day, I thought that Jaraxxus was extremely cool. Everybody thought Jaraxxus was extremely cool back in the day, unless you were playing like Goblins versus Gnomes and afterwards, where Lord Jaraxxus just almost couldn't see any play ever because of how weak 15 HP actually is. And that was kind of the issue with this card, is that it was so overshadowed by its major weakness. Also, with Sack Pact, that was kind of funny. That's no longer a thing unless you do some kind of weird Low Walker Cho Sobatier combo. But regardless, Lord Jaraxxus now has been changed to the point where you just gain 5 armor versus sacrificing your health to make it automatically 15, no matter what it is. And we're not going to talk about whether or not the playability of Jaraxxus has gone up because of that, because it definitely has. There's definitely no argument there or case to be made otherwise. But the flavor of this card is definitely, like, through the freaking roof. Like, hero cards were definitely inspired by Lord Jaraxxus. Like, saying otherwise is definitely not true as well. But this card just literally just screams awesome, man. Like, what else can I really say in order to really buff up Jaraxxus? Like, if you guys have played him, you know exactly how he performs. You just scream Oblivion, hit him in the face, and just wait until your opponent eventually runs out of resources and falls victim to your demons. Like, I absolutely love Jaraxxus as a flavor card, and this is one of the reasons I feel like people love Hearthstone, is because of cards like Jaraxxus. It's got a cool animation, it replaces your hero, which again is very, very thematic of what Warlock is trying to do, and literally it's a legendary card, so people are going to be drawn to it because of its legendary status. And then when you see it literally kill your hero, you're like, awesome, I love this card. So in terms of design and how it makes me feel as a Hearthstone player, absolutely love to see it. Hero cards are a bit controversial in terms of Blizzard wanting to print more of them, but I would say that as long as they're not like, oh god, what was like one really OP hero? I mean, Jaina was really good, and Deathstalker Rexxar, all of them were good in their own way. Probably the Druid one was also really, really particularly useful. But hero cards can get very, very problematic if they are completely meta warping. Is Jaraxxus meta warping? Absolutely not. Warlock is like at the bottom of the ladder for some good reasons at the moment. But Jaraxxus is definitely a well-designed card. I don't think I can refute that. And if you guys have any reasons why you think Lord Jaraxxus isn't a good card, then I would definitely like to hear your takes, because I cannot think of one negative thing design-wise about Jaraxxus. Like, he's a cool card, and they got rid of his weakness with Sack Pack, so you really can't even say that as a negative, in my opinion. Dino Eber is saying another vote for Zilliax, so it looks like Zilliax actually might be the thumbnail for this one. But this is actually one that I highly agree with. Gomes Play is saying, I really love this card, overall all Demon Hunter cards, because he's got different kinds of cool mechanics like this. This is a cool card no matter what you say. You're telling me that Hearthstone came up with a minion that could become a weapon in some situations, and a class to where you sometimes either want a weapon over a minion? I really think that this card is insanely well designed, because it had, like, there may only be 2 different ways of playing it, like playing it as a minion or playing it as a weapon. But dude, those are 2 differently, like, those fill different roles. Like, if you have a minion on the field, you're trying to pressure your opponent into either trading it or using it to hit your hit face every single turn. But if you're literally just trying to hit face every single turn regardless, why not just make it into a weapon and swing with your own face? I think that this card is just really freaking cool. Whether or not you think it's well designed, or whether or not you think that it's game breaking, or it's not game breaking, but whether or not you think this card is going to see play or not, it's absolutely cool. Like, this is a cool effect that I would love to see more of, and it really highlights what Corrupt can be. The Corrupt effect is not completely warping the card like, say, Skull of Gul'dan. It's just giving the card another way of being played, which is what I really want out of my Hearthstone cards. Versatility is what I want. It's what I crave. It's what I need in Hearthstone in order to make me want to play want to make me play a deck. Like, you literally want different situations to happen out of a lot of your cards, because then it leads to different games, different end games, different situations to where you're gonna have to play your cards in an unconventional way. So Felsteel Executioner, whether or not it's actually good is up for debate, but I love, love, love what they did with this card, and I would love to see more cards just like it in terms of versatility and design. Astral Flame is talking about Gral the Shark, and as you can see, there's one Murloc that I think is a little bit more relevant than Gral, but still, Gral's a pretty cool effect. Unique tutor effect, relevant stats when you get to play the tutor, and it's also a shark. But yeah, I think this guy is a little bit more hungry than the shark is, because unfortunately, shark almost saw no play, and well, Mutanus sees play in Priest, and in some other rogue decks in Wild, not really too many, but I played this one deck that's pretty much like Alex Rogue with like Scabs and Spirit of the Shark, and I played it with Mutanus instead, thanks to Rolfo for the idea and for the better deck list, because I did come up with this idea before the mini set was released, but I didn't make a good deck for it. But now that Mutanus has a way of being played, it's pretty cool. But going back to Gral, the reason why Gral never really got a lot of play is because you played it, it took a minion from your opponent, but then that was kind of it. Like, it ate the stats. It was a 2/2. It was for 5 mana. If you ended up eating, like, a 1/1 or something, it was a very ineffective play. And I really don't think Rogue in particular, at least at the time, did not care about denying your opponent of resources. They were just trying to kill their opponent in some way or another. So Gral the Shark just kind of got overshadowed, pun intended, for Rogue, because of it just didn't really fit his game plan, while Mutanus, being a neutral card, can literally fit any class's game plan. So Priest right now is what I see taking the most advantage out of it. And in Wild, I did say Rogue, but Shaman can also take advantage of this card because of the Shudderwock capabilities. But Gral the Shark, sadly for me, it is a well-designed card. It just didn't get to see time in the spotlight, and now that's completely overshadowed by this little hungry guy, I don't think he's ever going to see much more play. Gus is coming in with a perfect card. It's my favorite card, at least one of my favorite. Despite that I hate this motherfucker, I guess its condition stats and are way far away from a lot of cards. My Lord and Savior, Mecha'thun, and he better be your Lord and Savior too after the end of this video. But yeah, I absolutely love, I love win cards. I love Exodia cards. In fact, I usually have my Exodia cards always sitting here right now, but they're in my binder, so I'm just gonna go ahead and show you guys. Bam! Look at that. I don't know if the camera's doing the greatest on this, and if I need to edit it, then I'll just show you this in my voice, but regardless, I always carry Exodia every single place with me at my home. So I love OTKs, I love combos, and I love cards like Mecha'thun that literally challenge you to not only play your entire deck, but to draw it and to have no cards left over, and then somehow, after all of that, you have to kill this minion last in order to get its effect to pop off. There's a lot of ways of being able to do this that's kind of cheating, in my opinion, like with Warlock. Druid is a little bit different because there's a lot of different ways of being able to build up to it. I like to play the APM version where you just go for it all in one turn, because it's cool, it flexes on my opponent. But Mecha'thun is just one of those cards to where you gotta make it work. You gotta literally make your deck work in order to put this card in it and have it see some sort of effectiveness. And oh god, I love it. I love this card. Blizzard, please print more win cards. They gotta be difficult to pop off, and that's why I love Mecha'thun, because he doesn't fit in every single class. Like, obviously he works in Druid, and he works in Warlock very, very well. But right now, Rogue is actually being able to take advantage of Mecha'thun because of Anka the Buried, the one weapon that gives you rush, I forget what it is, I think it's like Serrated Tooth or something, and Myra's Unstable Element. So Mecha'thun it's just a cool card. I don't really think I need to sell you guys any more on Mecha'thun. It's a great card. It literally is all of what I want in Hearthstone in terms of a win card, a puzzle card, and it's got a cool animation to pop off with it. So 10 out of 10 because of the stat line. Mecha'thun is one of the best cards in Hearthstone, and I'm sorry, you're not changing my mind on it because of how much I love Exodia decks. I may know that I'm wrong to a lot of people, but I just love the flavor of this card so much to where I don't care if I'm wrong. I just don't care because I'm exploding my opponent with such happiness. Gab is talking about Zilliax yet again, so we have another vote for Zilliax, and he's also talking about Defile, but I think I might have to just choose Zilliax for the thumbnail on this one. But Scrabbins is talking about Doomsayer. I love playing it on curve versus aggro, and you just know that your opponent is trying to figure out whether or not they should go face. I think that this is a really well-designed card, but unfortunately Doomsayer does get kind of overshadowed because of its synergies with Frozen mechanics, Frost Nova to just put it out there. Frost Nova Doomsayer was just a combo that literally would solo games for Mage. It just didn't matter unless your opponent had a way of clearing it from their hand. And 7 HP is a very large threshold for a lot of classes, unless you have like a rush minion that can run into it. But the cool thing about Doomsayer is that he's a 0 attack minion. So if your opponent does have stuff on the field, you can't just play it against them and then have it work. Your opponent is just going to be able to trade into it. So Doomsayer had a lot of interesting ways of being played. Again, with like another negative bit to it, he kind of was like an auto-include in a lot of decks. Whether or not he needed to be in there was kind of debatable. But again, Mage just really abused Doomsayer because of the freeze mechanics. And I don't know if Blizzard is going to be able to put this card back into the classic format, just due to the fact of how well it works in Mage. But the only other deck that I really saw that took advantage of this was like maybe a Priest, maybe a Warlock, maybe some kind of like control deck. I really didn't see this card outside of Mage, and I really feel like the reason why it got taken out, because it just saw play in one sort of deck and just didn't see much else. So I would like to see Doomsayer maybe get another chance here in the future, but it's still going to be a problem with Mage no matter how you look at it, because Cone of the Cold and other freeze mechanics still do exist. You also have Varden, so that combo's still there, but it's only a one of, so not the best way of clearing. But regardless, Doomsayer is a well-designed card because of how many different ways that it can interact with the game. It either wins the game outright because of the freeze mechanics, as I mentioned earlier. It can literally stall a turn for you. And in other situations where you just play it on turn 2, it can literally give you that breath of life that you need to not just get completely rolled by, say, a Token Druid in the beginning. So I would love to see Doomsayer back, but I'm a little apprehensive to it. And the last card that we have on this list is Sunkeeper Tarim. A lot of people probably don't remember this card very fondly because the way that this card was usually played was in one of two situations. Your opponent either had a board and they had a board full of 1/1s, and then they played Tarim, effectively playing a Quartermaster on all their minions, or they literally played this card in order to trade into one of the big minions that your opponent played. But Tarim was just, whoa. This card won me so many games when I was playing any Paladin deck when this was around. Like, this Ungoro Sunkeeper Tarim was played in Murloc Paladin. It was played in Dude Paladin. It was literally played in every single Paladin deck. Yes, even Odd Paladin, because Stonehill Defender could actually generate this card, and you would pick it every single time. This was an auto-include in almost every single Paladin deck, and I remember my friend Luker specifically said how much he hated this card because of how good it was. He played it himself, and he didn't enjoy it, but he knew how good it was because setting all of your minions' attack and health to 3 is mind-boggling, especially in a deck like Paladin, to where you're mostly on the field for a lot of the turns. Back then, it was mostly recruit and like token focused, so being able to set those to 3 attack was just massive. But Sunkeeper Tarim won me a lot of games. I definitely have a lot of fond memories with this card in particular. I think he's particularly well designed, but a lot of people are probably going to be like, he's just too good. He's too versatile. He has too many ways of being good because, as I said earlier, there were the 2 ways of playing him, but sometimes you could play them at the same time. You could have a full board that you want to buff and get rid of a minion at the same time while also dealing damage. Like, this card could literally do it all, and I don't think we've seen a Paladin card with this high of a power level in quite some time. So Sunkeeper Tarim is definitely one of the most powerful Hearthstone cards of all time. May not be one of the best designed to most people, but for Paladin, it works so well. And so this begs the question, Clark, what do you think is the best designed card in Hearthstone? Well, I've already made a video about it, so this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, but it's Nozdormu the Eternal. I really think that Nozdormu is a excellent design card. It just doesn't have incentive to see play because, unfortunately, in a game like Hearthstone, one useless card in your deck in order to get an ability like this is just not going to cut it. However, take out the fact that it doesn't see any play. I love the design of this card because it literally is like putting in a game mode on a card, except they don't have to make the entire game mode now. Literally, if players want to have this, you can fight your friends, put this buff in your deck, and enable some kind of funny experiences with it. More importantly, I actually made a tweet to where I'm going to challenge Hearthstone particularly in order to make this happen, but I would love to see a Nozdormu Invitational. You know, it sounds great, 2 words, Nozdormu Invitational. That's it. That's the tweet. I would love to see a fun tournament with goofy rules to where it doesn't matter who wins, we're just going to see some cool Hearthstone games at the end of the day. And the best part about it, you could sponsor, or not sponsor, you could showcase a bunch of content creators because you have fast games going on to where like brackets shouldn't take you too long unless for some reason everyone's playing control mirrors, which I don't understand why you would want to do that with this kind of card. But regardless, I would love to see some sort of invitational with Nozdormu to really capitalize on how awesome this card is. It's not necessarily a competitive card. It is a fun card, and that's the reason why it's well designed. It's not supposed to be breaking the meta in any way like Shudderwock or Zilliax or anything like that. It's supposed to be a card to where if people want to play fun Hearthstone, they have that option. If you're trying to do this on ladder, though, there's not a lot of people playing for fun unless their definition of fun is winning games. And Nozdormu, as we know, doesn't really win a lot of games. So Blizzard, if you're watching this video and you've made it this far, first off, thank you for making it to this part of the video. Second off, you need to make a Nozdormu Invitational because it is literally the definition of a spectacle. People are going to want to see this, and I definitely will. I will definitely tune into it. I will even call off sick for anything that I have planned in order to see this Invitational, especially since it's my freaking idea. Pretty sure somebody else at Blizzard has come up with this idea, but if they say, hey, Clark HELLSCREAM, we like your idea, we're going to use it, I'm definitely taking a day off in order to see this happen. But thank you guys so much for making it to the end of this video. If you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, feel free to like this video and feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel in order to be notified about any other uploads that we have to come out with. I really love doing this kind of content, theoretical Hearthstone discussions. It's really easy for me to be able to just record this in the morning, freshen my thoughts, and just look at a tweet. And if you guys want to see your replies on these videos in the future, feel free to check out the Twitter account and see what the most recent question is and respond to it. Because I try to get through as many replies as possible. I don't want these videos going over like 45 minutes if at all possible, so sometimes I will have to skip some. But most likely, I'm going to read every single one of my replies. I think I got through almost every single one in this particular post. So hopefully we'll be able to get through a lot more posts, and I plan on making a ton more episodes. So again, if you enjoy this content, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you for the next video.